Welcome back to the Caniac Chronicles, folks. I'm your chronicler, Andy, and this is episode 18. Alright, it's been about a week and a half since the last episode. I think about 6 games have been played since the last podcast. So today's episode, we're going to end up recapping the 5 games prior to the Florida game last night. Today is December 20th. It's midday, so we've got Tampa on the schedule later tonight, 7 p.m. But yeah, we're going to recap the 5 games prior to Florida last night. We've got a topic other than goaltending. I've noticed probably the biggest difference in this team between today's team and rosters past. We'll get into that. We'll kind of address the slower starts that we see from Carolina this season. We'll address a little bit more of the injury optics. We'll talk about that. It's kind of hard to avoid that topic right now with this team, especially after last night. Unfortunately, we'll get to some rough news. And then we'll have a quick long-term outlook on the team. We're approaching the halfway point of the season. I think last night was game 34, so in 8 more games, it will be the official halfway mark of the season, and we'll have a pretty good understanding of where teams are sitting in the playoffs. But without further ado, let's get into recapping those last 5 games prior to the loss last night against Florida. So we go all the way back to December 9th. We have Carolina play the Columbus Blue Jackets in Columbus. They come up with a really decent win there. Oh no, they played them at home. But if I remember this game correctly, we saw the Blue Jackets get ahead to a quick 1-goal start in the first period. I remember after that goal kind of thinking to myself, oh, this might be a game that ends up getting away from us. But Carolina tightens it up in the second period. They kind of just hold on, not for dear life, but that common notion, you hear it a lot in the postseason, but it was a lot of bending and not breaking in that game against Columbus. And sure enough, they finally are rewarded with a goal about halfway through the second period from Seth Jarvis to tie it up, which really gave a lot of momentum, and it swung a lot of the advantage, I would say, into Carolina's favor. And sure enough, they come out in the third period and close it out with a 3-goal third period to end the game 4-1. So just a regular game, a regular taking care of business type of game from Carolina there. Really good to see them hold that team off. That's a game that they should win, and they do it relatively comfortably too. After that game, they head on the road to go up to Washington and spend some time up there. This game, if I recall correctly, was a game that I feel like we almost kind of threw away. No, okay, so we were behind coming into the final stretch of this game. So Logan Stankoven Potts won, with about just under 3 minutes left in the game there, before sending it into overtime. Canes couldn't get it done in overtime, so the game goes to a shootout, and they hold strong in the period there. It was Bussey, actually. It was Bussey who gets the win that game. That's right. It was. So Washington is one of those teams that has one of those southpaw goaltenders similar to Bussey. He catches with his right hand and shoots. He swings the stick right-handed, which is very unusual for goaltenders. I think there's only about 3 of them or 4 of them in the league now that Bussey's in. But a good solid, divisional rivalry there. You definitely want to you'd prefer to keep that game, closed off in regulation, but they were down going into the late period, so you'll take the points any way you can get them. And Washington really isn't too much of a concern in terms of the standings. I don't really think anyone in our division at this point is all that much of a concern in the standings. So Carolina marches on. They take the infamous train ride to across the river to Philadelphia to play the Flyers. If you didn't see the social media post, Tripp had a lot of fun with the conductor or one of the Amtrak staff members on the train. He got to wear the hat, and he gave a pretty good all aboard to the crew up front in the cabin that he was in. So funny social media stuff there. This is a fun team to watch. Both the players and the commentators are now getting involved. It's really cool to see how loose and it's just a different side, I feel, to hockey in general, not just the Carolina Hurricanes, but to have a team that is embracing that social media culture. I think FanDuel has really they've afforded them the opportunity to do more of that, content value for the fans that watch and follow the team as a whole. So that was a funny game, a funny moment before that game. Carolina goes to Philadelphia. They do end up going down quick in that game. Again, a bad first period from Carolina. They're down 2-0 going into the locker room after the first, but they come roaring back in the second period with a goal from Ehlers as well as Nikishin. And then we see Seth Jarvis have a really good, was it a breakaway? I want to say it was a breakaway from Seth Jarvis. I'm not going to play the video because it'll play over the recording here, but there was a really good opportunity from Goss. It was a pass from Gostisbehere to Svechnikov, from Svechnikov to Jarvis, and it was a really good goal. Yeah, it was. That was the goal that Jarvis used. He used the move in the shootout, coming down on the breakaway, kind of come in hard, faking left, and then you pull back right really, really dramatically, and it really catches that goaltender sliding to the right, and it really opens up that left side of from the goalie's perspective, it opens up that left side of the net wide open, and Jarvis doesn't miss that. Unfortunately, just over 20 seconds later, Carl Grundstrom from Philly ends up tying the game, and we do end up seeing that game go to overtime. The two wins against Philly. So this game was played in Philadelphia, and then the very next day, the Sunday after, Philadelphia travels back to Carolina to play us at home. Both of these games show a difference between Carolina today. It's a smaller difference, and it's smaller because this is not a skill. This is not something that will factor into any playoff series. You're never going to see a game in a playoff go to a shootout. Every now and then there may be a penalty shot, but it would be surprising to probably see more than two. I mean, even two would be very surprising to see, but to see more than two penalty shots for any given team over the entirety of the postseason would be very shocking. So, this is a difference from Carolina in days past where they've struggled in shootouts. They have never been a very good team in the shootout. Philadelphia happens to be the complete opposite. They've got a lot of firepower, a lot of players that thrive in that 1-on-0 type breakaway setting. Between, just to name a few, Zegras, Michkov, Konechny, all those guys can score at will in terms of a 1-on-0 or a shootout type breakaway. And they were going into Philly was going into that shootout undefeated this season, 5-0 in their shootouts for the season. And so I was very worried that first game that we saw in Philadelphia, Canes having to push that to a shootout. I was not thrilled about it, but Bussy hangs in there. He slams the door shut in the shootout that game, and Jackson Blake ends up converting in the fourth round to win the game. So that was, again, just something that Carolina has not been good at in the past. It was really good. I think I made the post this evening and called it, sort of an unprecedented type win from Carolina. So really good game there, really good test of character. The whole weekend too. Canes had I think they got going in the first period of. Let's just pull the game up and stop wondering. But I think they, instead of falling behind in the second game, they ended up being ahead 2-1 after the first period, and they did get the first 2 goals, so they never saw, they were never trailing in that game. Unfortunately, a late third period goal from Trevor Zegras does send the game to overtime, but Carolina gets it done again in the shootout. This time, was it Pyotr Kochetkov standing tall? No, it was Bussy again. Bussy again standing tall. Well, then did he play in the game in Philly? It might have been Kochetkov. Let me just double check this. Yeah, it was Kochetkov in that first game, so never mind. Kochetkov held the door, slammed the door shut in the first game, saving 4 of 4 in that game against Philadelphia in the shootout, and Bussy slams the door and stops 3 for 3 in the game against Philadelphia in Carolina. So a really difficult weekend there, but the Canes come out with 4 points. You love to see it. Again, another divisional rival, so it would have been good to see them get all of the get the 4 points without letting the Flyers take 2 away from them. But their 2 points is 2 points, and that's all you need to worry about. And then finally, the last game before playing Florida last night, we have the Nashville game. Now, I was on travel and working the off shift for this game, so I didn't get to watch the whole thing in its entirety. I believe I sort of watched pretty much just the third period, but from what my wife was telling me and from just the scoreboard itself, as well as Tripp's comments in the post game, they handled this game. They took care of business. Tripp at the end, mentioned that the team that deserved to win won this game. Aho got going on the power play in that game, so we see Aho get a power play goal. That's good to see. He has 2 points in this game with an assist from Seth Jarvis, and so with that, those 2 points. Was this the 3-point game? Yeah, this was the 3-point game. Excuse me. How could I forget? This was the game that I mentioned on the last episode. I did say I want to see Aho come away with 10 points in the next 5 games. Unfortunately, we only see him collect, or has it been full 5 yet? Yeah, it must have. I think it must have been. So he didn't collect the full 10 points that I predicted, but he did get the 3-goal game that I predicted, and that was definitely what I was more eager to see from him, was a 3-point game. And he just so happened to do it against the team that I mentioned, would be a very formidable opportunity to do so. So good stuff there from Aho. I'm glad he got that. He did also make 2 goals. He had 2 goals in the game against Florida last night, so he did end up finishing with 5 goals in the 5 games. Definitely need more from him if we're going to convert on that 100-point bet this season. But he is still hanging in there. He's still relevant for the 100 points. He definitely needs to get going, I would say, in the coming month or 2. It would be very important for him to start lighting up the scoreboard in either goals or assists. Okay, and then moving on to the last game to consider here. So the Florida game last night. Actually, let me check my agenda first. We'll talk about Florida briefly. This ultimately was. It's an aggravating game. I know you're very aggravated if you're listening to this post and you're a Carolina Hurricanes fan. I was too. It was a very frustrating loss. It was very difficult to see that game play out the way it did. Very easy to get aggravated, angry about it. However, as a tenured fan, I chose not to be aggravated about it last night. And that's because it's just the regular season. You can't let it get to you like that. You just can't. If you do, it's going to be difficult to watch your favorite team, no matter what sport it is, because it's only the regular season. The Canes did send it to overtime, and they ended up going to a shootout. So you get at least that point in the standings. You were on a 5-game win streak. So that is a loss that you can take, especially if you're coming out of it with at least that 1 point in the standings. It's a very comfortable, high bird's eye view. you got to look at it from a bird's eye view, and then you won't get upset. Because if you do just watch the game and you do just look at it for what it was, it is very upsetting. Carolina gets reminded last night that Florida is the defending Stanley Cup champions for a reason. But there was some good stuff to come from this game. And I think the biggest thing to talk about here is the physicality that was shown from Carolina. And not just the physicality that was shown, but the sizing of the physicality that was shown. And what do I mean by that? In the past, we've seen Carolina has always been that grinded out, gritty, in-your-face, Hornet-type hockey where they're always bearing down on you. They're always, applying pressure on you. And they're forcing you to cough the puck up. They're forcing you to make turnovers. And they absolutely tear it up in the regular season when they play like that. And then when we get to the postseason, it's almost like they hit a wall every single time despite playing like that. And in the past, the main reason for that, I feel, is because we see them being undersized compared to other teams. You end up seeing them get shoved around in the postseason and not being able to hit as hard. They can take the hits, but in the postseason that really wears down on you, and you can see it especially when they play Florida in the Eastern Conference Finals. When they start throwing the bodies around, Florida takes complete ownership over Carolina, and that didn't quite happen in this game. And you saw it in a number of different people. I loved what I saw from Svechnikov. I know he kind of had the brain malfunction there at the end and didn't toss the puck down the ice to get, make an attempt at least at the empty net. He had, the center line. It wouldn't have been icing. And that was difficult to watch. It was difficult to see them give that up, but they didn't give that game up in that one play. They had two, 6-on-5 goals that they gave up to let the tie happen. They could have stopped the first one. They could have played it better. But unfortunately, they just fall short in that way. But Svechnikov was absolutely throwing bodies around last night. Jordan Staal as well came in with a lot of heaviness. I think it was Losterinen at one point attempted to make a hit on Staal, and Staal completely reverses the hit. And according to Tripp, he was giving him the stank eye walking away, kind of like, the way Tripp described it was kind of like a, what do you think you're doing, bud? Stay in your lane type of face. And that's the tenacity from Jordan Staal that I love to see. That tenacity is coming from him this season. That's new. It's not new. It's always been there for Jordo, but he's really leaning into that persona this year, being the big man, being a big body, and throwing that body around. And Aho's doing the same. Aho's bringing a lot of tenacity to his game too, to be more like a Brady, not Brady, a Brady Tkachuk, a Matt Tkachuk, a guy who can do both. He can finesse you with the puck with his hands, but he can also get in your grill and really shove people around. Aho had a great check in the corner last night, threw a body into the corner essentially. Really loved seeing that. Keandre Miller handling a lot of business out there, being called into a lot of being called into big opportunities to fight and turning them down, knowing the situation of the game. So a lot of good decisions there from Miller. Alexander Nikishin as well, another guy who can really lay the body into players. There was a moment last night where I think it was Walker was coming, there was a breakaway impending, and Walker was trying to get back in to defend, and he makes a play from behind that kind of breaks the puck up, but it also caused him to lose balance and basically go flying into Brandon Bussey, who did make the initial save. The puck squirts out and lands right in the center of the crease, right in front of the net. And if you watch the overhead, Nikishin comes skating in and he avoids the puck, but he completely boxes out the offensive player coming in behind him. It was a great physical play by Nikishin. It didn't require a hit. It didn't require this, big, loud noise that we like to react to. It didn't kind of put a mark on his back in any way. It was just a very solid defensive play using his body. And it gave Bussy an easy opportunity to get back out from inside the net and cover that puck up. Taylor Hall, who knew Taylor Hall was a big body who could throw the weight around, right? He comes in and he lays a very big hit in the corner last night on someone, can't remember who, but they were coming around the back of Bussy's net trying to make a play, and Hall just absolutely wallpapers him into the glass. That was awesome. It was good to see Kokoniemi back in the lineup last night. We always benefit from his physicality. I know there's a lot of aggravation around KK, but the guy doesn't make all that much money. I think his contract is about $4 million AAV, maybe $5 million. And to be honest, even though he's not scoring, even though he isn't making offense happen, I do think we really benefit from his physicality. And when he's playing physical, he is playing at his best. And if he continues playing that way, the goals will come in the postseason. Physical players are generally rewarded with offensive opportunity come postseason. You don't necessarily see it much in the regular season, because in the regular season, shooting scores more often than not. But come playoffs, you sometimes need not necessarily garbage goals, but you need those goals that go bouncing off of guys where there's chaos in front. And there's so many sticks and so many legs, and the goalie just can't see, and it tips off of someone's back or it hits someone's stick and goes into the corner. Those are the type of goals we'll see from KK if we do make the playoffs, and he does bring that A quality physical game. Sebastian Aho, I already mentioned, kind of in the same breath with Jordan Staal, but definitely saw a lot more physicality from Aho last night. Granted, Matt Tkachuk was not in the lineup last night. They weren't dealing with him. So we'll see how, when he gets added back in, how that looks. But I'm liking what I'm seeing from Aho. And who would have even thought? But Jackson Blake and Logan Stankoven are some decent physical threats out there. Blake took out two guys last night that I want to say had 4 and maybe 6 inches of height on him. And then who knows how many extra pounds of muscle. But Blake took them both out. I couldn't believe it. And Logan's not afraid to get in there and get physical either. So big sign, big positive sign there. In the same breath, you do think the game's physical level, unfortunately, because it went to overtime, we also ended up with a pretty nasty injury from Jarvis. Rod's initial comments from Tripp in the post game were that Jarvis is going to be out for a considerable amount of time. To me, that means a considerable amount of the regular season. I don't want to speculate. I'm not a doctor. Well, I will speculate, but I don't want to start any rumors, I guess. I don't want to start a rumor mill here. But my initial thought is cracked rib for Jarvis. Maybe a punctured lung. In fact, a pretty good chance of it. He was coming in pretty hot. They did show, I forgot what account posted it, but someone did show a side view of the speed that Jarvis had coming in when this accident happened. He got tripped going in on a breakaway in overtime, and his body just flies and smacks into the goalpost, and you can actually hear him on the audio. It's a hot mic. He's in really bad pain. And you actually even see Sebastian Aho come up, and I assume Aho's asking him if he's okay, if he's all right, and it's not good. Jarvis is shaking his head no immediately. You can tell it's a serious thing. But I have a good, not a good feeling, but I've got a feeling that it's just a cracked rib. And I say just a cracked rib lightly. It's not obviously optimal. You don't want him to get hurt at all. But in terms of the grand scheme of things, how many guys have we heard who have been dealing with a cracked rib and played the entire postseason, right? It's not a torn ACL. It's not a blown knee. It's not a pulled hamstring. It's not, broken fingers. a cracked rib is something that hockey players can deal with, and in the regular season, it's definitely something that they can come back from. And in terms of healing, a cracked rib does usually heal faster than an ACL, an MCL, a torn hamstring. Bones heal quicker than muscles and tendons and fibers. Excuse me. So, an optimal, a hopeful optimism there with Jarvis's injury, but we'll see as time moves on. One thing that's still looming with Carolina, the slow starts. I mentioned it for a number of the games there. Even though Carolina did have a really good game last night against Florida, they only did get one goal in the first period, and they were only able to get two more in the third before blowing a 3-goal lead. If they can get going there in that first period and come away with two even, that's probably a game that is, very safely in the rearview mirror there for the Hurricanes. So, again, it's tough to watch that loss last night, but there's a lot of good that came from it. There's a lot that you can deal with now. It's better to see them make this mistake right now when, Florida, don't forget, Florida needs to claw and scrape to get back into the standings here, right? They're in a not so great place. They just made it back into the divisional spots. They're in the second divisional spot for the Atlantic Division, but that's a highly competitive division this season. And for a while there, they weren't anywhere near a postseason position. Granted, the point density is huge, but a lot of work there for Florida in terms of staying in a position for a playoff spot and actually being there when the time runs out. So they're fighting for every point right now. They're really trying to become, they're trying to get back to where they really should be in the standings. And Carolina, again, coming off the 5-game win streak, Carolina's been doing very well. So it's okay to see that game unfold the way it did at this point in the season, rather than in late May or early June, depending on when these two teams meet. So anyways, slow starts though. Definitely something you want to see change with this team. I think as the season ends up winding down, we'll start seeing a lot more from them. Right now, this is something that they can overcome. It's okay to have a slow start at this point in the season. You can win the second, you can win the third, but you really want to see stronger starts come postseason. It's risky to do. You see games like San Jose recently. They got off to a very slow start in that game, and the game just got away from them. They could never bring it back into their control. But you've also seen games like against Columbus where they can let that happen and take care of business easily before the 60 minutes are up. In the postseason, though, we don't want to see that. We do want to see strong starts come postseason. I think they'll get there. I do. And then one of the reasons why I think we're not seeing strong starts from Carolina in particular this season, another point to make about Carolina at this moment in the season is I think I sort of have already kind of danced on it if I haven't mentioned it already, but we're not seeing them play 24/7 playoff hockey. I think in seasons past, they have been playing playoff type hockey in the regular season pretty frequently rather. And that almost, that begs the question, come postseason, especially given the circumstances, is that affecting their postseason performance? Are they having difficulty in the postseasons, getting over that hump because they're too beat up from playing postseason hockey all year long? I don't see them doing that this year. We definitely saw it last night against Florida. They played that way because they had to play that way against Florida. They needed to send a message to Florida before the postseason comes. I'm really excited for the next two games against Florida. We have two more games in Carolina against Florida before the season's over. And I would definitely say mark your calendars for those. The next one is right around the corner. It's on the 23rd of December. that's going to be a big game to watch. Carolina has a lot to prove in this league to the fans, but most importantly, I think they have a lot to prove to Florida themselves. And again, I think that also contributed to why things were so physical last night. So with them playing that short shift, heavy forecheck, tight neutral zone, grind it out in your face, they're not doing that all year round. And I think that's sort of contributing to the slow starts. But again, you see them play that way last night. Granted, the last 10 minutes of the game didn't go well, but that first 50 minutes looked phenomenal. It's exactly what you want to see from this team, especially against that team. And I can't wait for this series to start back up. If we end up playing Florida again, there's a very good chance that we could end up playing them again come postseason, I feel a lot better about the series this year than I did years past. It's good to see that Carolina isn't necessarily playing that all-out playoff hockey all year round at this point. It looks a little weird. They're winning games. They're getting points in the standings. But I do know that there's a little bit of frustration with the team not quite looking as good as we have in the past. And I think that's sort of the main reason is we have enough weapons this season. We have enough size this season. And we're a good enough team to win on the talents alone of these players in the regular season. We don't need to play that heavy playoff-minded hockey all year round. This is a team that is not just dealing with that being an issue causing you to be tired, fatigued toward the end of the season, but they've gone to deep runs, multiple deep runs in the last 6, 7, 8 years of this coaching tenureship with Rod Brind'Amour. And those extra games pile on, they stack on with this core roster that has been there for most of it. So we'll see how things unfold as the season goes on. We'll probably see this type of that type of hockey a little bit more as we get closer and closer. But they definitely are choosing to play that type of hockey when they're facing teams that warrant it, a la the Florida Panthers. And then, the continued optics of being beaten up, being injured, being bruised. Some players are coming back, KK, Slavin, but some players are also going down and out of the lineup, a la Jordan Martinook, and again, unfortunately, Jarvis last night. Not looking good with him. I do remain optimistic, but I sort of addressed this with the conspiracy theory. Other than the Jarvis situation, I think guys are just getting a bit of extra rest, being given enough time to get fully 100% back and ready to go, instead of playing with a sore collarbone that might turn into something bigger than that come down the road. I think they're just giving this team time to regenerate, recoup, get better. They've got a very good prospect system that a minor league team that supplies them with really good coverage, very solid NHL coverage from their AHL affiliate in the Chicago Wolves. So they don't need to worry when these players are going down. And again, I mention this every so often. I feel like it's been too long since I've mentioned it, so I'll say it again. We have over $10 million in cap space still. So there's still the potential of a very big type of trade or acquisition before the deadline here. And we'll see what that ends up being, but there's a lot going for this team despite looking beat up, despite looking injured, and playing basically with one hand tied behind your back because of the players you have to rest so much. But you see what this team looks like when they're fully healthy. There was that game against Nashville, I think, was basically a full slate of guys minus KK, and they completely dominated that game. Their defense was, again, the defense that they're known for, the elite best defense in the NHL, with Slavin back in the lineup. And I don't even think that they took any penalties in that game against Nashville. Let me double check that, but that was a stat that was kind of unbelievable to me, was that they took no penalty. Yeah, No, 0. No, they were 0 for 3 on that. Nashville was. What was it? There was a game recently, I thought, that they took no penalties in. Let me just see if I can find it. Not that one. Not Philly. Okay, so it was the first game against Philadelphia. So the game in Philadelphia at the Xfinity Mobile Arena, Carolina had no penalties. They took none. They had nothing to kill that game. And that's huge. That's big for them. So we'll see where things go with this team. We'll see what they look like come postseason, given all these injuries and all these roster rests. We'll see what happens with the Olympics. Apparently, there's some rumors that Bettman is trying to pull out the NHL completely from the Olympics. I guess things are not going well with the arena in Milan. They are under a time crunch here. I think there's about 50 days left until the Olympic Games kick off, and like I mentioned on the last cast, like that is a very quick amount of time to get a fully functional hockey venue up and running, with concessions and behind the scenes stuff, as well as locker rooms, equipment, management, organization, etc., etc. Media, they're gonna need all the media stuff that goes in there. It's a big project to get done in a very quick amount of time. So again, Bettman, I guess, there's been rumors that he might want to pull the NHL out completely. We'll see what happens there. That would be interesting if he does, because now that's 3 weeks of rest that the whole league is going to get, and I don't know what they're going to do to fill that time, whether they have a last minute All-Star game put together or another Four Nations type thing, who knows. But we'll see how the team's health progresses until we get to the postseason, and we'll see what they look like going into that postseason in terms of who's healthy and who's not. So, again, there's concerns out there right now. Again, the game against Florida was ugly. It's tough to see them blow that lead. I think it's going to teach them a good lesson, though. If we see them in that position again in the postseason, if we see that from them in the postseason, if we see them in a similar situation, I could easily see, Svechnikov remembering what it was last time, what happened last time, and just firing that puck down and scoring his empty net, or giving them that relief with an icing to knock 15 to 20 seconds off the clock and force them to make a break, make a move down the ice and get a full zone entry and set up shop with about 30 seconds left there. As well as the team not letting off the gas if they are up by 3 in the third period. We'll see how that goes come postseason, but I do feel like that was a great game. Other than that last 10 minutes, it was an electric game. It was really physically dominated by Carolina, and that to me was just great to watch. That was what I was thinking about last night after it was over with, to keep myself calm, keep myself, not angry about the moment, not frustrated. Again, it does suck, but it's just a regular season game. That's all it is. They're not going home after that because of that loss. And you're never gonna have the 3-on-3 overtime and the shootout decide the game in the postseason. It would be interesting to see how that game, unfolds if that was a full-blown, 20-minute 5-on-5 overtime like it would be in the postseason. I don't necessarily know if Florida gets the job done there, if Carolina has a full opportunity 5-on-5 with 20-minute overtimes to take care of business. We'll see. So the next game, so we have Tampa Bay tonight, 7 p.m. That's going to be in Tampa. I do think we can expect to see them come down heavy on Tampa Bay. Tampa is not quite what they were 3 or 4 years ago. They are still a good team. They still could put up a pretty good show. I do think after last night, though, that Carolina might roll through them. We'll see. December 23rd, a Tuesday, Carolina comes back home to play Florida. Big game there. Circle that one on your calendar. Be ready to watch that. That game is going to feel like June, I think. I think last night's game kind of felt like June. The 27th, Canes will be playing Detroit at home. That'll be a game that my wife and I are at. And then the 29th, they'll be playing the New York Rangers. And to close out the year, they will be playing Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh on the 30th of December. So other than that Florida game, four games here that have very good potential for Carolina Hurricanes wins. Those last three of the year have really good opportunity, I feel, for Carolina to scoop up 6 points there. So we'll see what they do. We'll see how it unfolds. We'll see how the Seth Jarvis situation transpires. Again, I hope my speculation here is right. Cracked rib, more than an injury that can be dealt with. Definitely a painful one, but again, it's not going to be an ACL. It's not going to be an MCL. It's not going to be something like that. That would be a lot more concerning to me. I think he's going to be okay. We'll see. But all in all, the closing idea here, the closing core idea from tonight's episode, Carolina, I feel they haven't lost their identity in terms of being that solid playoff hockey type team. Last night really showed that for me. It's an aspect of their game that they haven't played much yet this year. And so I think that might be a reason why the game kind of got out of their hands there before the end of it and why they ended up losing. But they're still, they still have that identity. I think that they've just learned how to control it more and turn it on and off when needed. So anyways, thanks for listening, folks. I do appreciate it. Like I said, I'm really, I signed up for Canva Pro, so I'm hoping that the content that's going out there is, bringing more and more value. I'm really enjoying it. I have been seeing, there's not a whole lot of viewership, I guess, but I'm really enjoying, the spikes in viewership. I see all the numbers in the background. And it's just a lot of fun to put this together. So we'll keep doing this. We'll keep running with it. Anyways, take care, folks. Have a great rest of your day.